Today is a WRAL weather alert day. Our stormy pattern continues, and it comes with a risk for flooding. I'll outline the hours we're most at risk coming up.
Former President Donald Trump holds his first rally in North Carolina since President Biden dropped out of the race. We'll look at security measures in place at the Bojangles Coliseum in Charlotte.
And breaking news, just moments ago, crews recovered the body of a man who drowned in the Neuse River. We are live on the scene with that update.
Today is our third WRAL weather alert day this week. Good afternoon to you. I'm Jeff Hogan.
And I'm Renee Chu. Thanks for joining us. There is a level 1 risk for severe storms in the afternoon and evening. Meteorologist Kat Campbell is in the WRAL Severe Weather Center. Kat, with the ground so saturated, flooding is a concern.
And, you know, with the ground saturated as well, it's easy for trees to come down. We saw several power outages last night as those storms rolled through, and we're under that risk again. The flood watch is in effect now and will go throughout the day tomorrow. We're looking at an additional 1 to 2 inches of rain. And keep in mind, many of us have already seen over 3 inches of rain over the past week, and we could see some totals up to about 3 inches. This is one of the reasons it's a WRAL weather alert day. We also have that severe weather threat, damaging wind gusts possible, and this is mainly from the Triangle, Rocky Mount, Chatham County, and points north up into southern Virginia, where we've got that greatest threat for damaging winds. Not much to see right now on the dual Doppler 5000 radar, and we do expect the radar to be quiet for a little bit longer. It's as we get toward the evening commute hours that we should begin to see these storms blossoming on the radar today, and any of these storms that develop could lead to some localized flooding, damaging wind gusts, and they're going to continue through about dinner time tonight. It's a 60% chance. Even overnight, we may have additional showers and storms overnight like we saw last night. And if you look at how much rain we have in the forecast through Friday, we're looking at 1 to 2 inches, generally speaking, with some totals closer to 3 inches possible. Tomorrow, we've got another medium threat for flooding, and we are already considering another WRAL weather alert day tomorrow. In fact, I think tomorrow's flooding risk may end up being a little bit higher than today's, and I'll explain why and the big difference in timing with tomorrow's rain coming up.
We are working to learn if recent storms had anything to do with a huge mess in North Raleigh this morning. A giant tree fell over on Dixie Trail near Churchill, blocking traffic there. City workers had chainsaws and cranes out there to remove debris. Power was knocked out to customers locally there. Former President Donald Trump returns to North Carolina today for a rally in Charlotte, and his aides say he is opting for indoor rallies for the duration of the campaign season in the wake of the assassination attempt on his life. WRAL's Eric Miller is live outside the Coliseum with a preview of the security measures in place. Eric.
Jeff, certainly a lot of firsts happening here today. This is, of course, former President Trump's first rally since President Biden decided not to run for re-election. Also his first in North Carolina since that assassination attempt. Out here outside Bojangles Coliseum today, you can see the crowd's already huge, more than 1,000 people in line here at this point. We know that the Secret Service, their usual sweep whenever there's a rally like this, it's underway inside right now at Bojangles Coliseum. Outside, security very visible here today. We've seen canines, sheriff's deputies, as well as other security personnel on patrol, very on alert here at this rally today. For former President Trump's supporters, hundreds of whom were already lined up by 9 this morning, that assassination attempt has really only strengthened their support for the former president. Now, at the same time, we've seen Democrats holding an event of their own across town. Those folks over there trying to redirect this message, seeking to tie President Trump to some unpopular policies nationwide. Here's a little bit of what they had to say there.
The enthusiasm we've seen so far for Vice President Harris is undeniable. And North Carolina Democrats are strongly united behind her. We all know that the road to the White House runs through North Carolina, and we are ready to deliver a win for Kamala Harris this fall.
course, Democrats there across town, very confident. Very different feel, though, here outside of Bojangles Coliseum. We talked to a lot of Trump supporters here this morning. They say they feel President Biden's decision to step back, making Kamala Harris the likely nominee, they feel that only makes President Trump's chances here in November that much better. These Trump supporters believing Harris's record on the economy as part of the Biden administration, as well as her role as the administration's borders are in particular, are big negatives for these folks. These folks are very strongly behind President Trump here. We'll, of course, be out here all afternoon. The doors open here at Bojangles Coliseum 2 this afternoon. President Trump expected to take, or former President Trump, rather, expected to take the stage at 6 this afternoon. In Charlotte, Eric Miller, WRAL News.
Vice President Kamala Harris is also on the campaign trail today with stops planned for Indianapolis and Houston. In the first rally of her renewed presidential campaign, Harris told supporters in Wisconsin that we are not turning back. In drawing contrast between Trump and herself, she told the crowd that, quote, "Our fight is for the future and for freedom."
I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
Harris drew enthusiastic cheers as she told the crowd that the path to the White House goes through Wisconsin. President Biden will hold a primetime address tonight at 8 from the Oval Office. He's expected to share why he chose to withdraw from the presidential race. Biden will also discuss his plans for the final months of his presidency and his decades-long political career. You can watch the president's address here on WRAL.
Breaking news this noon, the search for a drowning victim at the Neuse River is over now. We first reported this story yesterday in the WRAL Live Center during our noon news. Sky 5 was over that scene near Loch Raven Parkway and Old Mill Burney Road. WRAL's Julian Grace is live there at the scene right now. Julian, what can you tell us?
Well, Jeff, let me first tell you this. There has been a lot of movement here within the last half hour, and let me walk you through exactly what we witnessed. Around 11:33, emergency vehicles started leaving this area. Then 10 minutes later, we received a phone call from the Wake County Sheriff's Department telling us a body has been recovered. Let's go back to video from this search. We were out here shortly after 11:35 when that initial call came in for help. Now, this is the fourth reported drowning here in the last 2 months. The Wake County Sheriff's Office called off the search Tuesday night after storms moved through the area. Then dive teams were back out this morning looking for the body. Then around 11:33. That's when they recovered the body. Now, here's a perspective from a fire captain on just how murky and difficult it is finding a body in these type of conditions.
Conditions are obviously elevated based upon the rain that we've had recently. No water is currently being released by the dam at Falls Lake. However, inflowing water from creeks and surrounding tributaries all contribute to the murkiness and the elevated currents.
There are still so many questions out there. Specifically, the city of Raleigh is in control of the land near Raleigh Beach, as many people in this area call it. We have very specific questions on what they're doing to improve security, or I should say safety. We ask those questions and we'll have their response for you later this evening. For now, reporting in Raleigh, Julian Grace, WRAL News.
A FedEx driver is accused of stealing a family's dog that eventually died in the driver's hot delivery truck. That driver faced a judge this morning in Harnett County. WRAL's Ken Smith joins us now with what we know about this case and how this all happened. Ken.
Renee, that FedEx driver was reportedly on his route delivering packages when he took the dog. This is the FedEx driver we're talking about here. He's 44-year-old Kamani Marshall of Fayetteville. He turned himself in Monday, but has since posted bond and is now out of jail. Here's what we know according to investigators. Marshall kept the dog, a French bulldog named Tori, in his delivery truck as he continued working back on July 7th. The temperature that day was well into the 90s, according to investigators. We're also hearing from the dog's owner, who confirms Marshall did not take the dog from her property, but rather Tori got loose. Tori's remains were recovered on July 10th along Holly Mission Lane in Lillington, a couple of miles away from where Marshall reportedly took the dog. He faces charges that include larceny of a dog and cruelty to animals. We're working to find out FedEx's response to all this, since Marshall did not list an employer on his court papers. He's due back in court September 3rd. Now, WRAL's Chelsea Donovan is working the story, including trying to get some answers from FedEx and reviewing the danger of leaving pets in hot vehicles. Look for new reporting starting at 4 right here in WRAL.
Preparations are underway at the White House ahead of a visit with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tomorrow. Fencing is being put in place to keep protesters out. Netanyahu is scheduled to meet with President Joe Biden and Vice President Harris. Netanyahu will also meet with the families of American hostages still held by Hamas.
Next at noon, lost on a Utah mountain, how an 80-year-old woman's dog alerted rescuers to come save her life.
Also, it's racking up social media views by the millions, and it's no fishtail how two men were rescued when a whale upended their boat.
Plus, protecting the former president and the people going to Trump's rally tonight in Charlotte. At 12:30, a live interview with a former Secret Service agent who's had that assignment before.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.
Authorities say the pilot of a plane that crashed in Nepal was the lone survivor. That plane skidded off the runway in the capital of Kathmandu during takeoff. Video showed thick black smoke at the airport where crews worked to recover people on that plane. That plane was en route to central Nepal for technical maintenance. 18 crew members died. A chocolate Labrador retriever is now credited with saving an 80-year-old woman with dementia surviving on a Utah mountainside. This happened nearly a month ago, about 2.5 hours south of Salt Lake City. The woman went for a walk but never came home. Family and volunteers searched but couldn't find her. Rescuers followed the sound of her barking dog where they found him by her side. Rescue workers treated her for dehydration and a few bruises before reuniting her with her family.
Two brothers are being praised for their quick action after a whale slammed into a boat off the shore of New Hampshire, throwing the two fishermen into the sea. Michael Rosenfeld shares the incredible video that already has more than 4 million views.
A whale off the coast of New Hampshire breaching the surface of the water and slamming into a boat about a couple miles from shore.
Next thing we knew, he just popped up and landed right on the transom of our boat. No warning.
Greg Paquette was one of two men on the 23-foot boat.
I just see the whale's head land on the engine.
Greg and his buddy Ryland had been fishing in the Atlantic when the incident unfolded around 7:30 Tuesday morning.
The whale, his mouth was open, so it caught all the bait, and as it landed, it started closing, and then just basically I heard a crunch. So it basically crunched the engine.
Both men ending up in the water.
You're basically trying to survive, right? It's something that happens so quickly.
The dramatic scene caught on camera.
Fishing rod in my right hand, phone in my left hand.
16-year-old Colin Yeager recorded the wild video.
And I looked up and saw the whale.
His 19-year-old brother Wyatt behind the wheel. Both had been fishing when the frightening incident took place.
I was just like, oh my gosh, there's no way that actually just happened. Like, you'd never think of something like that to happen, but I was just like, they're in the water, we gotta get them out of the water.
The two boys immediately turned around to make the rescue.
It was kind of instinct to just kind of drop everything and go make sure the guys were okay.
The two men in the water were not injured and were able to climb on board Wyatt and Colin's boat. Their own boat capsized and badly damaged. They know they are lucky to be alive. So many more things could have gone wrong.
The water temperature was 55. When I dropped in, it was really hard for me to catch my breath. I wasn't actually really scared at that point. It was just more of like the shock of the water.
Looks like something out of a movie, right? That was Michael Rosenfeld reporting. Both men were in the water for less than 2 minutes before they were rescued, and you heard the Coast Guard arrived. The brothers say they often see whales when they fish for tuna about 10 to 15 miles offshore. Yesterday's situation, though, was by far the closest that they've ever seen a whale to shore.
To water of a different sort. Here we've had as much rain in 3 days as we get normally in the whole month of July. And Kat Campbell is in the WRAL Severe Weather Center right now with what that means for our flood risk.
And, we've just had so much rain all at once. We need this spread out over a month, but we've just gotten it in the matter of a week or two. And that's why we're under a flood watch. The ground's already saturated. And keep in mind, Saturated grounds not only increase the flood risk, but also the threat that trees could come down at any strong wind gusts. So there is a level 1 threat for severe storms. That's from the Triangle North for the remainder of today. So let's talk about that level 1 storm threat. It's out of a scale of 5. So level 1 is a lower end threat for us. It means we could see a couple severe thunderstorm warnings issued, with damaging wind gusts being the primary hazard that we would have out there today. A level 1 risk, again, more isolated. The flood risk may be the bigger deal today and tomorrow with a medium risk. Things are quiet on the dual Doppler 5000 radar for your lunch hour. If you do need to head out for a quick jog, a quick dog walk, it's humid, but now is going to be your driest bet to do so for the afternoon. We've got a 60% chance of storms starting around dinner time, and that's going to last even into the overnight hours. Early tomorrow, you may wake up to rain to kick off the morning. So an early heads up, check in with meteorologist Amy Wilmoth before you leave the house tomorrow. It's cloudy out there right now, 82 degrees, not as hot as we were at this time yesterday, but we should continue to clear out. The good news is we dry out just in time for the weekend. 83 for the high on Friday. Still a chance of storms Friday. There may need to be a 20% chance of rain added for Saturday, but for the most part, your weekend should be in much better shape than we have been for the past couple of weeks. We've got our cold front still hanging out nearby, sparking those showers and storms tonight. Then tomorrow's flooding risk not only comes from our stationary front that's still parked over top of us, but another one that's going to be colliding with it during the day. So we have plenty of lift, plenty of moisture to create those storms and flooding. But that front, that second front, should finally push our front that's been stuck to the south, and that begins on Friday. It wavers around a little bit Friday, still bringing a chance for some scattered storms, but by Saturday, it is looking more likely that the front finally pushes to our south and east, and that would be the ticket to ushering in drier air just in time for your weekend forecast. Today is a WRAL weather alert day. We still have that potential to heat up into the 90s with some thinning of the clouds, a 60% chance of rain tonight, and 80% chance of rain tomorrow. Tomorrow, we could see the showers and storms at any given point during the day, even as you wake up in the morning. And then Friday, it's more scattered in nature with storm chances at 50%. The weekend is looking pretty good. Highs in the upper 80s. It's sunny and drier, but there is something specific you may not notice when you look at this the weekend forecast, and it's these low temperatures in the mid to upper 60s. That's a sign that we may actually see a little bit of a humidity drop for the weekend. So looks like a good weekend forecast to look forward to. Maybe make some outdoor plans after you've been stuck inside a little bit more over the past couple of weeks.
Kat, thanks. Later on WRAL News at 4, one of our largest hospital systems in the Triangle launched a new program helping victims of violence. We'll hear from one victim on how the program has already changed her life and how many people they've already helped since starting it.
And the volunteer fire department in Wilson has a new tool to help fight fires like the one here at Spring Hill Presbyterian Church last week. Coming up on WRAL News at 5:30, how it works and how it's already made a big difference in improving response times. And still ahead this noon, the 2024 Olympic Games are just 2 days away, but a lot has changed over the years. We'll get a look at what's new this year and the newest sport to join.
Plus, there's another Team USA flag bearer next to LeBron James, tennis star Coco Gauff. Coming up, hear what she says this opportunity means to her. We are less than 2 days away from the opening ceremony for the 2024 Olympics in Paris. And we now know who will be the female flag bearer for the U.S. This morning on Today, Coco Gauff talked about the moment she received the news.
I'm going to be honest, we were all just taking our pictures in our opening ceremony outfit, and he went on this speech, and I was like a little bit upset at him because I was like, this is not the time or place to do that. Like, I was like, why are you doing this right now? And then he ended with that, and I was completely shocked. Like, I never would have crossed my mind. You know, it wasn't in, I have no words, honestly.
Yeah, the guy who made the speech, her good friend and teammate Chris Eubanks. This is the first time that a U.S. tennis player has received the honor. She's also going to be the youngest flag bearer for Team USA at 20 years old.
Fun, yeah. 8 years ago, the Olympics added rugby sevens and golf to the competition lineup. And then in Tokyo, sport climbing was among the additions. Later this week, another sport will join the games lineup. Liz McLaughlin takes a look at how Paris will offer a few new twists.
What started in the 70s in the Bronx and flourished in the 80s is finally getting an Olympic spotlight in Paris.
Breaking is going to get exposed to this broader audience.
Breakdancing, to most of us, is simply breaking for competitors like Victor Montalvo.
I'm just so excited to bring the hip-hop culture, the breaking culture into the Olympics and just show that it's all about peace, love, unity, and having fun.
And for the first time, Olympic medals. Battling head-to-head, competitors like Sunny Choi will improvise to tunes chosen by a DJ in the moment and be judged on elements including technique and creativity.
It's an honor. I feel grateful to be able to carry this legacy forward to the Olympic stage.
The stage for track and field will make a style statement in the world's fashion capital. A first ever purple track, which could add some luster to potentially record-setting performances. It'll be a tropical setting for the surfing events. Tahiti, a French territory nearly 10,000 miles from Paris, will be host to a sport following up to its Tokyo debut. Waters on the River Seine will be considerably calmer, but even busier Friday evening for the first ever opening ceremony held outside of a stadium.
What an incredible challenge to have and what a vision to execute.
Almost 100 boats will carry more than 10,000 athletes, nearly 4 miles down the waterway, past iconic Parisian landmarks, for what promises to be a spectacular show on the Seine. Liz McLaughlin, NBC News, Paris.
All the Olympic action begins today at 3 o'clock when the U.S. men's soccer team, players under age 23, will take on France in an opening round group match. You can catch that on Peacock. WRAL is your home for the Summer Olympics. We'll have live coverage from this Friday, less than 2 days away, until August 11th. Look for live reports from Paris throughout the competition at 6 a.m., 6 p.m., and 11 p.m.
President Donald Trump is working to rally North Carolina voters in Charlotte today. Coming up, WRAL's Eric Miller is live from Bojangles Coliseum.
Plus, more flight disruptions continue for Delta today as it nears a week since the global tech outage. The most affected airports and when company leaders expect the airline to get back on its feet. And here are your winning NC Education lottery numbers on your screen right now. We'll be right back.
Shot in 4K ultra high definition. Your number one source for local news. WRAL News. Coverage you can count on.
New video has surfaced that shows the tense moments immediately after former President Donald Trump was almost killed by a gunman. The 3-minute video from an officer's body cam shows law enforcement discussing the sniper spotting before losing sight of him. In the wake of that attack, presidential candidates are choosing to go with indoor rallies with controlled access. Now, Trump is in Charlotte today, where he's expected to address a charged-up audience. WRAL's Eric Miller is live outside Bojangles Coliseum with a look at the mood and the crowd. Eric.
Renee, taking a look at this crowd here, hundreds and hundreds of people were already lined up by 9 this morning. And at this point, we have thousands. This line stretching all the way down from one end to the other of this parking lot. Folks eagerly anticipating the former president's rally here, expected to get started at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Trump taking the stage around 6 p.m. Now, a lot of firsts here this afternoon. This is, of course, former President Trump's first rally in North Carolina since that assassination attempt, and his first period since President Biden decided to end his reelection campaign. We've talked to a lot of Trump supporters out here today. A lot of folks believe Biden's decision to step back from the campaign trail will only boost former President Trump. And also that assassination attempt that we saw 2 weeks ago now, that has only strengthened their resolve to support the former president. Take a listen to what some of these folks had to say here.
Oh, it's on. It's on stronger than ever. We're in the fight even better now.
Now, at the same time as all this is happening, we've also been hearing from Democrats here this morning, including members of Charlotte's City Council. Those Democrats hoping to present a united front, and a stark contrast with Trump here, hoping to tie Trump to several unpopular policies nationwide. Of course, there's a lot to look out for today, including how former President Trump is going to address Kamala Harris, his likely opponent here for the general election as we move closer to November. We'll be looking out for all of that this afternoon. In Charlotte, Eric Miller, WRAL News.
Today, the Democratic National Convention starts the process of naming its new presidential nominee. A committee will meet to talk about the process for how to pick a new nominee to replace President Joe Biden on the ticket. Vice President Kamala Harris has secured the backing of enough delegates to get the nomination. The DNC plans to hold a virtual roll call before the convention to select a nominee. The process is expected to wrap up by August 7th. That's 12 days before the convention starts.
Delta appears to be recovering from the meltdown that affected hundreds of thousands of people trying to travel. About 2 minutes ago, the CEO released a statement saying he expects tomorrow to be a normal day. NBC's Tom Costello reports that recovery couldn't come soon enough.
The question Delta passengers are asking this morning, is this the day Delta's meltdown melts away?
It's like 4 days in travel, really, because of all the delays.
Today marks day 6 since Friday's massive computer crash that crippled Delta's operations worldwide, leaving hundreds of thousands of passengers stranded for days and struggling to find or talk to Delta agents.
Delta's going to have to come off some money for this because this has been quite expensive.
Now the Transportation Department is demanding answers.
We've launched an investigation into the situation with Delta.
The big question, why has it taken Delta so long to recover from Friday's global computer crash, while other airlines mostly recovered over the weekend?
Are you getting any explanation from Delta why it's taking so long to answer phone calls, why people are standing in 4, 5, 6 hour long lines only to find out that their next flight is canceled? Any explanation from Delta management?
Not any good ones.
In a statement, Delta says its teams are working tirelessly to care for and make it right for customers impacted by delays and cancellations. On Tuesday, Delta canceled nearly 500 flights, more than 5,400 since Friday morning. The most affected airports, Atlanta, Delta's home airport, and key hubs, including Detroit, Minneapolis, LaGuardia, Washington Reagan, Boston, Salt Lake, and JFK.
We haven't gotten any information, and we've all been wearing the same clothes for 2 days now.
With misplaced luggage piling high at many airports, the challenge now is finding the right bag.
I would want my luggage now. I want things to go back to normal because I plan on doing some traveling.
It's sort of like being on Gilligan's Island, going for a short little tour and not being sure when you're going to get off the island.
It's Tom Costello reporting. If you've ever had a flight canceled, you might be wondering if you can get a refund. WRAL 5 on your side is breaking down how newly established passenger protections affect you. If your flight was canceled, you can get a refund if you choose not to travel. You should also get a refund if your flight is significantly delayed, and you should get baggage fees returned to you if your bag is lost. The U.S. Department of Transportation also has a list of what different airlines have committed to do for passengers in case of a problem. And we have a link to that information on WRAL.com.
And happening right now in the WRAL Live Center, French authorities have foiled several plots to disrupt the 2024 Summer Games in Paris. A young man was arrested in France today on suspicion of planning a violent action against the Olympic Games. Officials also arrested a Russian man yesterday on suspicion of planning to destabilize the Olympic Games, and an 18-year-old also arrested for planning to target the organization of the game. The city has deployed 35,000 police officers with a peak of 45,000 for the opening ceremony.
More cities across North Carolina are installing camera systems. WRAL found 5 cities in Wake County with cameras already in place. Another place expanding its network is Rocky Mount. That's where 200 cameras are being added in the next 6 months for a total of 700. The Rocky Mount Police Department is working with local business owners to expand the network through private cameras.
Of safety, more safety than I felt in quite some time, so I am truly grateful
The Rocky Mount Police Department tells us the cameras were a $1.2 million investment.
How many is too many prescriptions to have at one time? Why overprescribing drugs is becoming a public health concern.
Plus, Southwest under scrutiny, the series of unsafe incidents that prompted a review by the FAA. Stay up to date on our potential for severe weather today by downloading the WRAL News app. Get important weather alerts wherever you are.
Evictions have exceeded pre-pandemic levels in some major cities. Nashville has seen evictions spike 31% since 2019. Fort Worth, Texas, and Jacksonville, Florida aren't far behind. Experts blame a combination of higher rent, the expiration of COVID-era protections, and policies that make it easier for landlords to evict tenants. The FAA is reviewing Southwest Airlines after a series of safety incidents. Several Southwest planes have flown at dangerously low altitudes recently. In another incident, a plane took off from a closed runway. Southwest is working with the agency and its own team of experts to perform an in-depth analysis.
How many pills do you take every day? Millions of Americans are starting to lose count, creating a new problem experts are calling prescribing cascade. About 13% of Americans take 5 or more prescription drugs every day. That number shoots up to 42% for those ages 65 and older. Experts call it a prescribing cascade, with patients sometimes not even aware of what they're taking or why.
Advocating for yourself and having the conversations and just knowing why you're taking any of the medications that you're taking, and anytime anything changes, asking the question why is so important.
Lawmakers say part of the problem is that the U.S. only spends $19 per person on public health each year, which they say is not enough to educate Americans on the dangers of overprescription.
Former President Donald Trump is campaigning in North Carolina today for the first time since the assassination attempt against him. Coming up, what a former Secret Service agent says about the potential change of moving campaign events inside and if it could help provide safer environments for candidates in the future.
Plus, the 2034 Winter Olympics are coming back to the U.S. The city leaders picked for elite athletes to compete.
The steady stream of presidential candidates coming to North Carolina continues. The latest will be former President Trump tonight in Charlotte. The first time since the assassination attempt a candidate will be in our state. A lot has happened within the United States Secret Service since July 13th. And joining us is former U.S. Secret Service agent Paul Eckloff. Paul, thanks for taking some time for us today. I know you're busy and traveling. You've protected Presidents Obama and Trump in Charlotte and all around North Carolina. We're a little over an hour away from the doors opening for the Trump event tonight. Take us inside that final meeting of preparation. What would that be like for the field office there on site?
That's an interesting question, but that final meeting likely occurred last night. They've been on the ground for a number of days, ensuring that the protective site, they've mitigated as many vulnerabilities as they can. As we're looking towards the doors opening, what we're going to see is the ends of the sweeps. There will be canines, EOD, and other types that will move around and look for explosive devices, either in the site. We'll be looking at the end of the sweeps before the magnetometers or the metal detectors can open and the public are admitted.
Secret Service is recommending the Trump and Kamala Harris campaigns stop holding outdoor events. We don't see presidents riding around in open air vehicles since the assassination of JFK. Should indoor events be the new norm?
I think indoor events should be considered more often with large crowds, but there are always trade-offs in security. An outdoor site, such as the field in Butler, Pennsylvania, had any number of vulnerabilities from lines of sight from a potential sniper, as sadly and tragically we saw when a father lost his life, 2 civilians were shot, and the former president was nearly killed. But as you move to an indoor site, it opens up a number of different vulnerabilities that you don't have in a farm field. It is a far more controlled environment with separate ingress and egress for protectees, staff, press, and VIPs. But as you put the Bojangles Center, which is an excellent facility to do this in, capacity, I believe, around 9,000, you can control who's in there. It's already designed for crowd control. But one thing to be considered is you have highways nearby and roads that you don't have in rural environments. So you open up an entirely new vulnerability to be concerned with vehicle-borne explosive devices. It's constantly a trade-off of risk mitigation and risk tolerance.
Is the size or amount of assets dedicated to protect President Biden or Vice President Kamala Harris the same as a former president like Trump here tonight?
Under normal circumstances, a candidate and former president would have significantly less assets. What we saw prior to the tragedy in Butler, Pennsylvania, was the assets on Trump were increased. He had counter-assault elements. He had counter-sniper elements, thank goodness, because it was a counter-sniper officer technician that took the deadly shot to prevent further bloodshed. Now, President Trump, with the threat spectrum that we're aware of, will have increased assets. We will see increased manpower, and we will see additional technologies brought to bear.
Paul, in 10 seconds, can people feel safe? We've seen a lot of them outside the Bojangles Coliseum there. Can people feel safe around that area tonight?
People should feel absolutely safe. I've conducted protective operations in North Carolina for decades, and the men and women of law enforcement, state and local, and especially in North Carolina in that area, are excellent. They're among some of the best I've ever worked with. You should feel safe in their hands and the Secret Service. All
right, Paul Eckloff spending some time with us, former United States Secret Service agent. We appreciate the time and the insight into that scene there. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Renee?
Very interesting to hear that conversation and Paul peeling back the curtain on Secret Service protocols, that balance between risk tolerance and risk mitigation. We have an increased risk for severe weather today. Meteorologist Kat Campbell to walk us through what we could see later this afternoon and evening.
Yeah, we still have some time before these storms arrive, and unfortunately we could see more of them during the overnight hours, similar to what we saw last night. The wind damage threat, a level 1 out of 5 risk, so it's a localized threat. This means there could be a couple of warnings, but not everybody's going to see a severe thunderstorm warning. The large hail threat is pretty low, and our flooding risk is medium. This may end up being our main concern, but keep in mind we could see trees come down. Unfortunately, the grounds are already saturated for so many of us, so that wind threat could lead to some trees down and power outages as well when you combine it with the heavy rain and flood threat. Medium flood risk, that level 1 risk, but let's talk timing. From 3 p.m. today through about 2 a.m. So we could see these threats even linger overnight. Franklinton, boy, you've seen a lot of rain over the past 3 days in Franklin County. It's really come down. A nice break there right now. If we take a live look at the visible satellite imagery, where you see all the white, that's some thick cloud cover. So we have more thick clouds moving through Wake County right now. We're starting to clear up just a little bit around Durham and Chapel Hill. And once we get this little band of clouds right here pushes east, I think we're going to heat up some this afternoon. 82 right now, the heat index, 88 in the Triangle, the heat index 96 in Fayetteville, and 100 in Clinton at this hour. It's feeling pretty steamy out there with the humidity. The temperature's not terrible, but I think as soon as we see the sunshine, our temperatures should jump back up near 90 this afternoon. Things are quiet for us on the dual Doppler 5000 radar for now. If we look ahead through the afternoon by 5 o'clock, we've got some hit or miss thunderstorms that have popped up in the area, and that chance really goes up later this evening and tonight. This is 8 o'clock, and you can see pretty good coverage of showers and storms, and those should linger even past midnight. There could be a little bit of a lull, and then tomorrow morning, we'll see another band of showers and storms move in. This band should bring an even greater threat of flooding, and we're going to watch this very closely. This is 10 a.m. for tomorrow on Futurecast. We're seeing some differences in the models. It could differ by 2 hours early or 2 hours late for when this band arrives. Just be aware that there should be a widespread band of rain that arrives pretty early in the day tomorrow. So it's not just afternoon and evening storms for us, though we'll have a chance for some scattered activity even late in the day tomorrow. Our flood threat is medium again tomorrow. We are already considering another WRAL weather alert day for tomorrow, and a medium threat again Friday, but that threat is limited more to our southern counties, so it's not likely to be as widespread of a risk for us on Friday. This afternoon, if you're headed out for a dog walk, now's the time to go for a quick one while it's dry outside and cloudy. That may help with some of the pavement temperatures. Later on this evening and tonight, you're going to be dodging a lot of showers and thunderstorms out there, and we've got an 80% chance of rain tomorrow. Just 81 for the high tomorrow. Scattered storms remain possible Friday, but that front finally slips to our south in time for the weekend. It's not going to be so soggy this weekend, even a little bit less humid with lows back in the 60s, hot during the afternoons with highs in the upper 80s, but things timing out perfect in order for you to have some outdoor time over the weekend.
Cannot wait for the weekend. Kat, thank you. With all the attention on Paris, one city is getting some love after being chosen as the host for the 2034 Olympics. And residents won't be taxed with expensive building costs because they already have venues in place.
And you're winning Mega Millions numbers 3, 9, 14, 26, 51. The Mega Ball is 21. The Mega Pliers 4.
Welcome back. This is a live look at the DBAP, and you can see there's some activity there. We're thinking maybe it's some kind of kickball event, but the Durham Bulls will be hosting Gwinnett later tonight. You're looking live at Durham and watching WRAL News, available on Hulu and the WRAL app on your TV or streaming device.
And we're wrapping things up with a look at a few of the headlines we're following for you today.
A body has been found in the search for a missing swimmer in the Neuse River. Crews were called to report a drowning in the area of Loch Raven Parkway and Old Mill Burney Road yesterday morning around 11:30. Deputies say a man went under and never resurfaced. Crews started searching again around 9 this morning after suspending the search last night because of storms. And we're still waiting to learn who the victim is and what happened.
A FedEx driver accused of taking a family's French bulldog is facing charges after the dog died. Harnett County deputies responded to a report of stolen dog in the area of U.S. Highway 421. The dog's owner says that dog, Tori, got out of the house on her own and then disappeared. Investigators learned a FedEx driver delivering packages in the area took Tori. They believe she died due to heat-related issues. Deputies say the driver, Kamani Marshall, turned himself in.
The Northern Wake Senior Center is reopening after a COVID outbreak. The town of Wake Forest says the center will resume normal operations tomorrow morning at 8. Meals on Wheels of Wake County is also resuming its normal Friendship Cafe offerings tomorrow.
It's official, the Winter Olympics are returning to the U.S.
The 27th Olympic Winter Games 2034 are awarded to Salt Lake City, Utah.
Well, that's a great area. A delegation of city and state officials celebrated after the announcement. Back in Salt Lake, a large crowd also cheered in the wee hours of the morning. Salt Lake City last hosted the Olympic Games in 2002, and it is the 5th time the U.S. has hosted a Winter Olympics.
Our pet of the day is a leisurely lady from Cat Angels NC. Meet Tabitha. Despite being abandoned by her previous family, she's a super sweet girl who absolutely loves people. At 12 years young, she's relaxed, loves to sit on a couch and keep her person company. Tabitha would prefer to be your one and only so she can have you all to herself. If you'd like to meet her in person, fill out an application on the Cat Angels website.
Millions of dollars and hundreds of jobs are coming to Cumberland County. And coming up at 4 o'clock today, we are taking a look at the impact of the latest economic announcements for the area.
NBC News Daily is next on WRAL. Your next local news update in 30 minutes.
You can always get breaking news updates anytime with our WRAL News app. Have a good Wednesday. Stay dry later.
Stay safe with the latest WRAL Weather Alert Day info. Get up to the minute weather and traffic conditions when you get in your car. In Raleigh on 99.3 FM, in Durham 96.5 FM, and everywhere on 101.5 HD3.